Good morning, everybody. Right now, I'm hoping that your day is beginning well and that things are coming together as we go out and have to do life today. I know right now in America there's a lot of turmoil and our hearts are heavy for the things that we see going on around us. But you see, we believe in a God who is able to do above and beyond anything that we could ever ask, think, or imagine. Therefore, our trust, our hope should be in God. I want to begin today's word of encouragement with a question I want everybody to consider. Now, how many of you out there want to be heard when you have something to say? You actually want to be heard. I take it that there's 100% agreement that all of us want to be heard. In fact, the ultimate in disrespect occurs when we feel that our voice is discounted. You see, talking to one another is the least we expect to be able to do when we have to deal with the issues of life, especially with those closest to us. Jesus said it this way: out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Our inability to connect with one another deprives us of the opportunity to reveal what's in our hearts, our true feelings, our views, our opinions, and even our hurts. Nothing hurts our relationships more than being misunderstood because we cannot communicate. We have to ask ourselves why, or what gets in the way of our desire to reach each other, especially in a marriage and family context. So we're going to do that this morning by doing a little exercise. We're going to have a little exercise today. I want you to participate. I want all of you, here's our exercise. I want all of you to consider for a moment what it's like for the other person who tries to communicate with you. Let me repeat the question. I want all of you to consider for a moment what it's like for the other person who tries to communicate with you. You see, rarely we think about what the other person feels or thinks because getting our point across is the most important thing to us. But if we did consider the other person and what their experience is like when trying to communicate with us, we might rethink how we address people in order to get our point across and the best result. One of the best things we could ever do in order to better manage our relations with people is to become a good listener. With that, I mean, to value what others have to say as much as we want to be valued in what we have to say. You see, James, the Lord's brother, put it this way: be quick to hear and slow to speak. You see, speaking is not our problem. It's listening that we find difficulty in doing. That's why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Speaking is not an issue. Listening is something we all have to deal with. Now, let's take a lesson from the Lord today. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Shema. The Shema. If you've never heard of it, what it is it's like a daily prayer to the Jewish people, an ancient Israelite tradition. It's the equivalent of the Lord's Prayer in the Christian tradition. So to the Jewish people, the Shema, that is a very important part or a very important tradition in their culture, just like the Lord's Prayer for us. Here's what it says in part, and I'm going to read to you from Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4. It says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all of your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them upon your children." You see, Shema means to hear or listen, to obey. Before God could even deal with his people, he had to begin his message. Now, this is God. He had to begin his message with the word listen, because listening is a challenge for us. It's a fundamental issue for us. A major deficiency for mankind is our lifelong struggle is to simply listen. You cannot obey God if you don't take time to hear what God has to say. In fact, the Bible teaches us that faith comes by hearing. If we could communicate effectively with one another, there's not very much in life we could not accomplish, especially a family. Now, there are positives and negatives that go with communication or lack thereof. Those positives or negatives will definitely impact your interactions with people in every area. What happens when you think you are being heard? Let's go through the emotional part. Let's go through what it feels like when you think you're being heard. First of all, if your partner, your mate, or the people you're addressing are listening to you, you feel that you are valued and validated and your views are important. You feel respected by others, especially your mate. You feel that you could accomplish almost anything with those that are important to you. Understanding brings peace and removes doubts and fears. There is nothing like having your true feelings received and embraced. Now, how about the negatives? When you think you're not being heard, first, you feel devalued. You feel loneliness in that environment. We very often shut down. We stop caring. Sometimes we retaliate. Would you guys allow me for a moment to share a few things that I hear very often in counseling from couples as they deal with communication? 5 things why couples say, and there are many things, but let me just point out 5 that people say often to me about why they can't communicate. Number 1, my mate rarely gives me credit for the things I do, so I just check out. My mate is excellent at fault finding. My mate never gets to the point. Everything my mate thinks is a fact, so there is no need to respond. Their tone of voice is more than I can handle, so I instantly tune out. I asked you earlier to consider for a moment what it's like for the other person who has to communicate with you. I hope you will, because it could change the whole relationship you have with other people. Finally, the golden rule in which Jesus gave us in Matthew chapter 7 in the Sermon on the Mount. Here's what he says. Are you ready for it? Matthew 7 verse 12. So in everything, do to others what you would have them to do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets. So if you want to be heard, become a good listener. If you want to be spoken to with respect, be respectful. The tone you use matters. It can stop the conversation before it ever gets started. Remember, Proverbs 15:1 says, a soft answer turns away wrath. Well, may God richly bless you, and may that word in some way impact you in a positive way. God bless you. To God be the glory.